Welcome to your ultimate pit stop, Piston Pundit, where horsepower meets headlines, and the road to insight is always in high gear. It's the spring of 2025, and the American supply chain is sputtering like a misfiring engine. What triggered the chaos? A thunderclap from Washington in the form of a 145% tariff on Chinese imports. What followed was nothing short of gridlock, ghost ports, billions in stranded goods, and economic aftershocks spreading far beyond the docks. Let's break down how a tariff intended to fuel domestic strength has instead jammed the gears of global trade, forcing automakers, truckers, and retailers into crisis mode. Buckle up. Here are the key chapters of this unfolding disaster. From shipping lane to parking lot, ports brought to a standstill. The Port of Los Angeles and Long Beach, America's busiest twin engines of global trade, are now coughing fumes. With a 44% year-over-year drop in vessel calls and an eerie stillness haunting the harbors, this once thriving hub has become a monument to stalled commerce. Since the tariffs were imposed in April, over 80 vessel sailings were abruptly canceled, and port activity now mirrors the COVID-era downturn. Cranes stand idle. Containers brimming with auto parts, electronics, and retail staples sit unmoved. Some are stuck offshore, others simply abandoned in container yards. According to the Marine Exchange of Southern California, container ship arrivals dropped by over 30% in early May. Major alliances like Maersk, Hapag-Lloyd are ditching U.S. routes in favor of friendlier waters, redirecting freight toward Latin America and Southeast Asia. With $14 billion in cargo frozen, the ports aren't just log-jammed, they're hemorrhaging relevance. And it's not just our end that's broken. Chinese shipping hubs like Ningbo and Zhoushan are backed up, with exporters hesitant to send goods to a market plagued by political risk and evaporating profit margins. These aren't just trade routes, they're the clogged arteries of a consumer-driven economy. But jammed ports aren't the only casualty. The people behind the ports are next in the firing line. Crushed gears, how the labor force is taking the hit. If ports are the lungs of trade, then workers are its heartbeat, and that pulse is fading fast. In California alone, nearly 900,000 jobs are tethered to logistics, and the current slowdown is leaving tens of thousands gasping for shifts. Longshoremen report historic drops in hours. Part-timers? Lucky to get even one day's work. Full-timers? Many are clocking less than 40 hours for the first time since the pandemic. Gary Herrera from ILW Local 13 says activity is lower now than during peak COVID. Meanwhile, the Inland Empire's warehouse volume is in freefall, and truckers like those in Teamsters Local 848 are barely covering 1 or 2 routes a week. DAT Freight and Analytics notes a stunning loss of 700,000 truckloads in just 2 weeks, a figure that should raise red flags nationwide. The pain isn't confined to the docks. Local businesses, from coffee joints to hardware stores, are suffering. When port workers have no work, they stop spending. And as consumer spending stalls, so does the economic engine in cities like Oakland, Long Beach, and San Diego. The dominoes are falling far beyond the ports, and just as labor suffers, so too does the retail lifeline of Main Street and megastores alike. Before we delve deeper, do us a favor and smash that like and subscribe button. It helps Piston Pundit reach more enthusiasts like you, and keeps you updated on everything that matters under the hood and behind the headlines. Retailers in reverse? Walmart and Main Street struggle to shift gears. The National Retail Federation projects a 20% nosedive in imports for the back half of 2025. Walmart, ever the weather vane of American retail, is slashing product orders and raising prices. But while corporate giants can downshift and detour, small and mid-sized businesses are hitting dead ends. For these smaller players, the 145% tariff is a death sentence, especially for low-margin goods like tools, gadgets, and toys. Store shelves are thinning. Promotions are disappearing. Some product lines are simply vanishing because customers won't pay the inflated prices. Walmart even announced in May it would drop certain products altogether, reshaping what American shoppers can expect on their next store run. Attempts to shift sourcing to Vietnam, Indonesia, or Mexico sound good in press releases, But reality bites. Infrastructure is limited, costs are climbing, and domestic reshoring remains a regulatory and financial minefield. The 90-day tariff reprieve is cold comfort. As Jonathan Gold of the NRF warns, if tariffs spike again, retailers could be left with overpriced inventory and no margin for error. That uncertainty, it's now the new business model. But shrinking shelves and shattered margins are only part of the picture. Next comes the industrial slowdown hitting manufacturing at its core. America's engine stalls, logistics woes cripple manufacturing momentum. What began as a tariff war is now idling America's industrial core. The knock-on effects of port paralysis have reached the factory floor, particularly in the auto sector, where U.S. plants rely heavily on microchips, sensors, and precision components sourced from China. In Michigan and Tennessee, production lines are slowing to a crawl. Some facilities have already cut shifts or shut down entirely due to missing parts. It's not just new builds that are affected. Spare parts shortages are creeping into dealership service centers and independent repair shops, especially those servicing Asian brands. That spells trouble for aftermarket suppliers and mechanics who depend on reliable access to OEM parts. Nationally, the damage is showing up in the numbers. U.S. GDP contracted by 0.3% in April, the first downturn since the pandemic. Railroads have trimmed their container hauls. Trucking firms are downsizing. Warehouses are either packed to the rafters or operating at a trickle. Even defense contractors are now sounding alarms. What began as a tariff policy is morphing into a serious industrial bottleneck. Meanwhile, the other player in this global tug-of-war, China, isn't sitting idle. It's rewiring the rules. China switches gears, rewiring trade for a new world order. China isn't throwing in the towel, it's just shifting into a new lane. Faced with punishing tariffs, Chinese exporters are rerouting billions in goods to Latin America, Africa, and Southeast Asia, where tariffs are gentler and demand is rising. Ports like Ningbo and Shanghai are now shipping US-bound goods to Brazil and South Africa instead. The Chinese government is pushing for domestic growth while expanding regional trade under its Belt and Road-style framework. Still, not everything is firing on all cylinders. Youth unemployment is over 20%, and some factories are scrambling for new buyers. Replacing the scale of the US market isn't easy. Meanwhile, the US has its own reshoring ambitions, but Vietnam, Thailand, and India still fall short of China's logistical prowess. America's own manufacturing revival would take serious investment and time. Global logistics are now caught in a transitional maze. $14 billion in rerouted or stranded cargo marks more than just a temporary disruption. It's a sign of a deeper transformation. So with both sides pivoting, one big question remains: who's really winning? Final verdict: tariffs, trade, and the trouble with turbulence. From the ghost docks of Long Beach to the frozen lines of Detroit, the US-China tariff war is no longer a headline. It's a full-blown industrial reckoning. Yes, Trump's administration says this is about economic independence, but at what cost? We're talking $14 billion in lost trade, thousands of jobs disrupted, and a once fluid supply chain now grinding against uncertainty. A 90-day reprieve might buy time, but time alone won't fix broken links. Before you go, we want to hear from you. Is this tariff war a necessary sacrifice for long-term U.S. strength, or is it a high-stakes gamble gone wrong? Can the American auto industry truly untangle itself from global dependencies? As a consumer or a car enthusiast, how are you feeling these changes in your garage or at the checkout? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We're listening. And don't forget to subscribe to Piston Pundit for more updates on the battles shaping your cars, your tools, and your trade. Thanks for watching, and until next time, keep that engine running strong. You can now check out any of the videos on the screen. There's plenty more to explore.